All right, so we are back. We are going to be working on pattern number 2 in this tutorial. If you are just joining me here on this pattern number 2 tutorial, I do ask that you refer to pattern number 1, part 1 to get started. Any of these designs that I'm going to show in all of the Mosaic crochet along, you can do them in any combination that you want, but they're all going to be starting with a starting chain of multiple of 10 plus 6 at the end. And that's all explained over in the part 1 on pattern 1. So if you are going to be starting out with this pattern that I'm about to teach you, you're going to want to refer to video number 1 in order to get started with your foundation chain in your first 2 rows, and then you'll be able to join up and start doing this pattern. So for those of you that are coming back with me and have already completed your pattern number 1, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Just like we've been doing, I'm going to be adding on a new chain, or I'm sorry, a new color. And I'm going to be using this blue color. It's turquoise blue color right here. And we're going to go ahead and get started by placing a slip knot on our hook, or getting a slip knot ready to place on our hook, because we're going to be going right here at the very start of this row. And if you are joining up with me, you're going to make sure that you find that first V, and that's where we're going to insert our hook. And then from there, we are going to grab our yarn and go ahead and place a slip knot on our hook and get started. So I've got my slip knot ready. I'm going to go ahead and join it onto my hook, tighten it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to pull up that loop. Now I'm going to be grabbing my tail and my working yarn, and I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook and go ahead and pull through the loop to chain up 1. Now I'm going to let my tail fall in my case. You can work over your tails here at the beginning if you would like. I'm going to go back down into the same exact stitch. Right there, the first, I'm going to grab my yarn, pulling up a loop, and I'm going to grab my yarn again and pull through both loops, doing a single crochet. So that's our traditional single crochet, and that is how you start each and every row. Now I'm going to go ahead and go here. This is my very next stitch. And what I'm going to be doing in this case is I'm going to go ahead and do one of my double crochet drop downs where I'm grabbing the front loop. So I've identified my very next stitch right here, and I'm just simply going to drop down and locate that loop right there that's directly below the stitch I'm going to go over. And I'm going to grab up that loop. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull up a loop. I'm going to make sure I'm not doing tight tension, because I do not want to draw that loop upward and make everything tight. So now I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through 2, grab my yarn and pull through 2 to do that double crochet. And if you take a look at your work, that double crochet is going right over the second stitch. So we want to make sure we're going to work in the very next stitch beside it, doing our back loop only single crochets. So to do that, we're going to go in that back loop. We're going to grab our yarn, pull up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through 2, doing a back loop only single crochet. So now we're going to do that 2 more times. So we're going to go ahead and go into the very next stitch, grabbing the back loop only. We're going to grab our yarn and pull up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through 2, doing our next back loop only single crochet. We're going to repeat that 1 more time, just like we have been. And now here in this 4th stitch over, so we've done 1, 2, 3 back loop only single crochets. We're going to wrap our yarn and we're going to get ready to do our drop down double crochet. So here's our very next stitch, and if we slide our hook down, that's the loop right there that we want to grab up. So we're going to turn our hook, grab up that loop. Now we're going to grab our yarn, and again, not keeping tight tension. Want to be loose on our tension. We're going to go ahead and do our next double crochet. So that's what you have right here. So now we're going to repeat this all the way down the row. We're going to go into the very next stitch. We're going to go ahead and do our 3 back loop only single crochets. So there's 1. Here's number 2. Here is number 3. And then the fourth stitch, we're going to go ahead and do our drop down double crochet. So here's our next stitch. When we slide our hook down, directly down, there's the loop we want to grab up. So we're going to go ahead and grab up that loop. We're going to grab our yarn, not pulling and tugging on that loop. We want to just go ahead and complete our double crochet. And if you're worried about your tension and that you're pulling that loop upward too much, you can always place your thumb on it and hold it down. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that double crochet. Now we're going to do this together again. We're going to do our next 3 stitches are going to be the back loop only single crochet. So there's 1, here's number 2, and third stitch we're doing our back loop only single crochet. And now we're going to go ahead and drop down and do our double crochet. So here's our very next stitch. Slide your hook down. That's the loop you want to grab up right there. So we're going to go ahead and grab that loop up. We're going to grab our yarn and pull up a loop. Grab our yarn and pull through 2. Grab our yarn and pull through 2. So it's just a completely normal double crochet. We're just doing it in this front loop right here. So now we're going to make sure that we identify our very next stitch. And like I showed you, you can always pull back your work. This stitch right here, the double crochet covers it. So we want to make sure that we don't work into that stitch. We want to make sure we always go in to the very next one. Now we're going to do our 3 back loop only single crochets. There's 1, here's 2, and here is number 3. And then again, just like we did before, fourth stitch, we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. Here's our next stitch. We're going to slide down. Here's that loop that we want to grab up. We're going to go ahead and grab that loop, and we're going to complete out our double crochet. So it's going to end up looking exactly like this. So you're going to continue on down your row. We're going to make sure each time that we do not accidentally work in this stitch. When you pull it back, you can see that our double crochet is going to cover that stitch. So the very next one right there beside it is where we want to work. Back loop only, doing 3 single crochets. There's 2 and here's 3. And this is next stitch is the only time you're going to have to worry about this if you're following along with me and you've done this pattern right here as your first pattern, pattern number 1. In this case, we're not going to be able to just drop down and grab a loop because it's covered by this double crochet. But we can get the same look by going behind that stitch. So I'm going to kind of turn the work so you can see. You can just slide and kind of lift up that double crochet so that you're coming out on the other side. And we can complete our front loop double crochet basically by doing a front post double crochet around that. It's going to give us a similar look, and we'll be able to keep going on down the pattern, or finishing this pattern out on down the row, I mean. So we're going to go there into the very next stitch, and we're going to start doing our our back loop only single crochets. Do 3 of those. And then just like we did before, we're going to be able to do in the fourth one, we're going to drop down and we're going to do our double crochet right there in that front loop. You're just going to complete out your normal double crochet in the front loop. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to doing the rest of our row in the exact same way. 3 back loop only single crochets followed by 1 front loop double crochet. And if you run into that issue like we did here where we have a drop down double crochet already in place, just work around it just as I've done here, and it will keep the same look for your project. It's going to give us that same look that we're going for, but you'll be able to work around that stitch in that manner. So just continue on down your row, and we're going to meet back up to move on to the next row of this pattern. And just real quick, I want to show you what the end of your row is going to look like. If you follow the same counts as me, I've got 2 stitches left, and I've done my 3 back loop only single crochets. So my very next stitch right here, I'm going to be sliding down, and I'm going to be doing my drop down double crochet, And then in the very, very last stitch of this row, we're going to make sure that we go under both loops. So we're going to go under that V, pull it apart so you can see we're going under both loops, and we're doing our single crochet, just classic, normal single crochet at the end of the row. That's going to allow us to have really nice straight edges, but it also makes it a lot easier putting on the border. And for me, I like to chain up 2 and then clip my yarn and cinch it down so that I can make sure that I don't have anything coming apart. That's how I do it. If you want to just sew in your ends, you're more than welcome to, but if you are doing a bag or something that's going to get a lot of use, you're definitely going to want to cinch that down so nothing comes apart. So here's what our work is looking like. Looking pretty good. And we're going to go ahead and move on now to our next row. So for me, I'm going to be going back to what is my color A, the white that I've been using. I'm going to make sure I get in underneath both loops on the front, on this first stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn, and I'm going to have a slip knot that I'm going to need to prepare. Slip that on and cinch it down. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up one loop, just like so, grabbing both working tail and the yarn. I'm going to do one chain, and now I'm going to go back down on that same exact stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and complete a single crochet here at the very beginning of this row, just like that. So now what I'm going to be doing is, and I've split my yarn, so let me go ahead and try that one more time. Back down in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do 3 of our front loop or back loop only single crochets. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up tonight. 1, here's 2, and 3. And then in our 4th stitch, we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So here's the 4th stitch. I'm going to drop right down below to that loop, pick up that loop, and I'm going to begin doing my drop down double crochet, just like that. Now I'm going to do 1 back loop only single crochet, and then in my very next stitch I'm going to do another back loop only single crochet. The next stitch, back loop only single crochet, and in my 4th stitch I'm going to be dropping down, doing my drop down double crochet right there, grabbing up that loop. And I'm going to continue on down this entire row, doing 3 of my back loop only single crochets, and then 1 drop down double crochet. So we're going to be doing it basically in sets of 4, 3 back loop only, 1 drop down single crochet. And you can do that all the way down this entire row and meet back up with me to move on to the next. Make sure that when you're doing the end of your row, you do your classic single crochet going into both loops. Do not forget that one. So you can go ahead and pause here, and we will meet back up after you've done 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 double crochet sets, just like that, all the way down this row. And you're meeting back up with me. Sorry about that. We are going to be continuing on with our next row. I am going to continue for the moment in that same color blue. You do not have to do each section in the same colors. You can mix it up as much as you would like, but we are here and I am finishing up the end of my row real quick. Gonna clip my yarn. This is what your work should be looking like. You kind of form in these little L's if you take a look at it. So we're going to continue on with our next row. We're going to join our yarn on just as we have been here at the beginning of this row, making sure that we go under both loops because we want to make sure we have a single crochet at the beginning of the row. So I'm going to go ahead and join on my yarn. Got a little slip knot, and I'm going to pull up that loop. And I'm going to go ahead and do 1 chain. And then I'm going to finish out by going back into that same loop just as we have been and finishing up doing a single crochet. So now what I'm going to do is the next 2 stitches, I am going to do my back loop only single crochet. So I'm going to go right up underneath that stitch just as we have been doing the back loop only in the next 2 stitches. There's 1 and 2. And now in this 3rd stitch, I am going to drop down and do my double crochet. So I'm right here. I'm going to go down, grab up that loop, grab my yarn and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. So there is our drop down double crochet. And now I'm going to complete the next 3 stitches are going to be back loop only single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And now here in the 4th stitch, I'm going to drop down and do my drop down double crochet. And we're starting to form this cute little pattern. And I'm going to go ahead and do my next 3 stitches are all going to be the back loop only single crochet. So that's going to be our repeat. 3 back loop only single crochets, and then dropping down and doing a drop down double crochet or front loop double crochet. And you'll notice that where we're placing these drop downs is right here in front of the white row that we did, the double crochets on that row. So that's another way of keeping count without having to count. You can keep track by just looking at your work, and when you meet up with the stitch right before your double crochet, that's going to be your 4th. That's where you're going to place your drop down. So you can go ahead and pause here and complete out the rest of this row just like that. Really super easy, you guys. So we will be meeting back up to move on to our very next row once you've completed all of these back loop only single crochets and drop down double crochets on this row. Just doing the same thing, 4 sets of 4 all the way down, and you will be good to go. So we'll go ahead and pause here. We'll meet back up in a moment. All right, so we're meeting back up, moving on to our very next row, which for me, I'm going to be going back to my color A, the white color for me, and we're going to go ahead and join on here to the very first stitch in the row. You can find it by looking for that V. First one there, you want to make sure you get underneath that, and you want to go ahead and pull up a loop, grab your yarn and pull through, doing 1 chain up. Now we're going to go back into that same exact stitch, and we're going to go ahead and finish out our single crochet. And now we're going to be doing 1 back loop only single crochet in this very next stitch. And then we're going to do our drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. Go ahead and drop down. You're again working right up against your previous drop down double crochets. So you're working right up there by them. Now we're going to go ahead and do 3 back loop only single crochets. So that's going to be the beginning of our repeat. We're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets. And then looky here, we're right here at this spot. We're right before this double crochet. And we're going to do our drop down double crochet. So just like in our previous rows, repeat is exactly the same from here. You're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, followed by 1 drop down double crochet. So we're going to go ahead and complete this row very quickly. You're going to drop down, and if you stop and take a look at your work, Make sure you're not getting crazy on your tension when you're doing these. You want it to lay down. This is what we have. So we're starting to like climb a little staircase. So we're going to keep working the same way all the way down the rest of your row. And we'll be meeting back up to go on to our very next row where I'm going to be changing color again. So go ahead and pause the video here. Work 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down crochet, and continue to do that all the way down. I'm at the end of my row here, and I just wanted to show you guys I have worked the 3 back loop only single crochets, but if you take a look, I'm here at the end of the row. Technically, if I was following my pattern, I'd be doing a drop down double crochet, but we actually never want one of those in the very last stitch. That will make it start to get kind of wonky on the side, and we want a nice clean edge. And if you're looking at your work so far, you've got a really pretty edge. Yeah, we've got a ton of tails, but if we were to tuck those out of the way, there's a pretty straight edge right there. So for the very last stitch in this row, and anytime you run into this, you're just going to go ahead and do your single crochet. Regardless of what you want to do following this pattern, and once you get to that last stitch, no matter what you're supposed to be doing there, it's always going to be a single crochet traditional underneath both loops. So we have that nice clean edge. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to our next row. All right, so you're meeting back up with me, and I've already got my new color of yarn joined on. I've got my single crochet done. And in the very next stitch here, I'm going to go ahead and do my drop down double crochet. This is our last row that's going to kind of continue the step up pattern. And then we are going to be working in the opposite direction to bring it back down. So you'll see what I mean. I'm going to go through it with you. We've got our drop down double crochet here. And now we're going to, just like we've been doing, we're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets. So we're going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3 back loop only single crochets, and then we are going to go ahead and do our double crochet drop down in the very next stitch. So we're going to continue on down this row exactly in the same way. So this is just another row just like we've been doing, and then the next row we're going to be changing it up a bit. I'm going to show you guys how to work it back down in the opposite direction to form a really cute pattern. This in itself is a pattern all alone. You could keep continuing to do this step up, this little stair, all the way as wide as you wanted to. But for the pattern I'm doing, we're going to work it back down the other side to form a really pretty shape. Like I said, you can use this alone as just a part of your design, and you can keep stepping it up, making it wider, or you could end it here and move on to pattern 3 when it's available. It's completely up to you. But just stay tuned and watch along with me and work along with me, and we'll see if you like what we end up with when we finish this out, working down the other side. I'm going to call this working up, and the other way we're going to be working back down. You'll see what I mean here shortly. So just keep working on down your row, just as we have been doing 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet. And we'll meet back up when you are finished with this row. Really quick, simple, easy repeat. And we'll meet back up and we'll move on to the next row where I can show you how we can change this cute little step up design into something else. And if you haven't noticed, I changed colors again, and it's starting to look really, really pretty. So we'll be back in just a second and we'll do the next rows together. All right, so here's what our work is looking like after we finish that row. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next color, or I'm going to be going back to my color A, the white color for me. Going to go ahead and add on your yarn yet again, making sure that you go into that very first stitch right there under the V, just like we have been, and we're going to pull up that loop. Now we're going to grab both the working yarn and the tail and chain 1. And then we're going to go ahead and insert back into the same exact stitch. And we're going to go ahead and finish out doing our single crochet, traditional single crochet right here at the beginning of the row. So now what we're going to begin doing is we're going to start doing the same pattern but in the opposite direction to form a new shape. So like I said, you can continue on in this exact same manner as you have been and do the same exact thing for a much longer section and then follow along with me here. It's completely up to you. But if you're doing exactly as I am, we're going to go ahead and work in the new pattern. So we're going to be doing a back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch. So we're going to go ahead and go into that very next stitch and go back loop only and do our single crochet. And now, since we're changing up the pattern, we're going to go ahead and wrap our yarn and we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet in this next stitch. So here's the next stitch. We're dropping down directly below and grabbing up that loop. And now we're going to go ahead and grab our yarn and pull up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through two, grab and pull through two to finish out that double crochet. Starting to form that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start working just like we have been. We're going to be doing the 3 back loop only single crochet. So there's 1, 2, and 3. This is our new repeat, by the way, which is just like the other one, but because of the way we've started, we're positioning our drop down double crochets differently now. So we're going to be going here in the next stitch. We're going to do our drop down double crochet. So I'm going right down and grabbing up that loop, and we're going to finish out our drop down double crochet just like so. And all right, if you take a look, sorry about that. If you take a look, we're now connecting this little white, for me, what's white, we're connecting these double crochets so that we can start forming this pattern right here, but going in a different direction. So we're stepping up and we're going to start stepping down now. Hopefully that's making sense. So we're going to continue on down this row the entire way, doing 3 back loop only single crochets and then 1 drop down double crochet. So we're going to be lining up this time right over these double crochets from the previous row and just grabbing up that loop, or from 2 rows down, I guess, or yeah, 2 rows down. You guys see what I'm talking about. So we're going to start forming this now. So you're going to work on down the rest of your row in the exact same manner, and then we'll be meeting back up to change our color again and do our next row. So you can go ahead and pause here and come back and meet up with me when you're ready to move on to your next row. Just remember, 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet. And it should be lining up. If you're doing the same color for your drop down double crochets, the color A, if you're using one color A all the way through, you'll just be matching up with those other double crochets so that you can form this design. So we'll be back in just a moment and do our next row together. And just real quick, I wanted to show you guys, if you followed those foundation counts as me, you're going to run into this at the end. I've done the 3 back loop only single crochets. Now I'm here at the end of my row, and I would be doing, if I was following along my pattern, I'd be doing my drop down double crochet here, but because it's the very last stitch in the row, we cannot do that. We've got to go underneath both loops and do our traditional single crochet at the end of the row. So don't forget that. You'll be tempted to stick the double crochet there. Don't do it. Do your traditional single crochet. And now we're going to go ahead and move on up to the very next row. So I'm going to clip my yarn. And I'm going to keep going in my new color that I just added on since I've only done a row. I do want to point out real quick, when I was working, if you're working in scraps like I am, when I was working this row right here, I actually got to a point down here where I ran out of yarn. I didn't have enough of this blue color. It's like it's more blue to me. I don't know how it's showing for you guys, but it's more of like a blue, and this is more of a turquoise color. So all I did was join on my new color, and it's a slight color change, but it works perfectly. So that's something you can actually do on purpose if you were wanting to kind of have like a fade going on in your project. Instead of fading upward in your rows, you could also throw in some where you're just fading over a little bit. It doesn't look bad. I mean, it's not super noticeable unless I'm pointing it out like I am now. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next row. And I'm going to go ahead and do my slip knot and stick my hook in underneath my 2 loops here at the front so I can do my traditional single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and pull up that loop. I'm going to grab both tail and working and chain 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back down into that same exact loop and pull up a loop to do my traditional single crochet right here at the beginning of this row. And now what I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to do 2 back loop only single crochets. There's 1. And pull out a little bit more yarn. And here's number 2. And now I'm right here in front of this solid line that I've created by doing my drop down double crochet right on top of the drop down double crochet from a few rows ago. So what I'm going to do here is in front of this, here's my very next stitch. So right in front of this, I'm going to be doing a drop down double crochet. So if you look right here, slide your hook down. There's the loop that you want to grab up. Let me do that from this angle so you guys can see dead on. So here, got wrapped for doing my double crochet. So here is my next stitch, and when I slide down, that's the loop I want to grab up right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my double crochet, the little drop down double crochet is what I've been calling them. And we're starting to form where we're stepping down or up in a different direction. I don't know how to explain it. You guys see what I mean though. So now from here, we're going to return back to doing our 3 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to do our drop down double crochet. So we're going and dropping right on down, grabbing up that loop, and doing our double crochet. And we're going to continue to work in this exact same manner on down the row. And I'm just going to turn my project real quick. I'm going to do a little bit more with you guys, but this is the shape that we're now forming. So hopefully you guys like that. So we're going to go ahead and continue on down our row from here. And we're going to be making sure that we're going in our very next stitch. Always remember you can pull your stitch back and make sure that you skip that one that the double crochet is covering when you put it back into position. So we're going to go ahead and do 3 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to do our drop down double crochet, just like we have been. 1 of those. So we're going to keep on working this entire row from here exactly in the same manner. 3 back loop only single crochets I should say, and 1 drop down double crochet, and it just happens to be positioned right there in front of our little solid line that we've created in our last row. So you'll just keep working exactly like that. You can go ahead and pause here and meet back up with me at the when you finished out your row. Make sure you do your single crochet, traditional single crochet in the very last stitch, and then we will move on to our next row. So go ahead and pause here. All right, so here is what your row is looking like when you turn it on its side. And this is what it looks like when you're looking dead on at it. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one. We are going to go ahead and add on our yarn again, just like we've been doing. Go ahead and get in that stitch and do our single crochet right here at the beginning of the row. Go ahead and pull up my loop, chain 1, back into that same stitch, and do our single crochet. Just like all the other rows, this one is going to be super easy, and we get to go ahead and start our repeat right out the gate. So we're going to go ahead and do 3 back loop only single crochets. Get my tails out of the way. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now right here in front of this little drop down double crochet, this is our 4th stitch, and just like before, in our 4th stitch we're going to be dropping down and doing our front loop double crochet, or what I've been calling the drop down double crochet. So we're going to continue to work in this exact same way all the way down this row. You're going to do your 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet. And if you're not counting, you're wanting to just do this with mindlessly, then you're just making sure that you position those stitches right there in front of the previous row's drop down double crochet. So that's all you're doing all the way down this row. So you're just going to keep on going. We will be meeting back up when you finish and moving on to the very next row, which is going to be, I believe, our last row on this one. I'll double check myself though before we do that. So just go ahead and pause here and move on down the rest of your row doing the same thing. 3 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet, and we will meet back up in just a moment. All right, so we are back ready to do our next row. I've already joined on my yarn, just doing the same thing we have been. I'm sure you guys get it by now. It's the single crochet, traditional single crochet at the beginning of the row. We're going to go ahead and get started by doing our very first drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. And this is going to be our last row for this pattern. I double checked myself. So we're going to go here into the very next stitch. We're going to slide down and find that little loop, and we're going to go ahead and grab it up, and we're going to complete our drop down double crochet. There's through 2 and through 2. And now the rest of our pattern is, or the rest of our repeat is about to begin. We're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, just like we have been. Let me get a little more yarn out. So there's my first one. Now we're going to do our second and our third. And then we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So we're going to go ahead, just like we have been, drop down, grab up that loop, and we're going to finish out our double crochet. Now we're going to do 3 more of the back loop only single crochets, 1 in each stitch. So there's number 2, and here is number 3. And in the 4th, we drop down and do our double crochet. So the same thing that we've been doing, it's just now finishing out our pattern for us. So if you take a look at your work, if you turn it this way, you can see it really well. We're just finishing up that pattern. So we're even from here to here. And this is where we're finishing. So right here to here, nice and even. And if you wanted to, you could add a row of the white in the same way, but we're going to end here because we are going to be coming back in pattern number 3 and moving on to our next row. So you're just going to go ahead and finish out this row working 3 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet, and then you will be complete with pattern number 2. So I am so happy that you guys have joined me on this, and hopefully you are understanding what I'm talking about and enjoying making your beautiful mosaic crochet piece, whatever it is. So thank you guys again for watching. Please make sure that you have subscribed so you don't miss any more of these patterns as they come out. This is going to be the second one for this week because I just released one a few days ago. So I'm going to keep trying to put them out as quickly as possible so this blanket doesn't take a billion weeks to teach to you guys. And leave me a comment below and let me know how I'm doing. And if you have any suggestions or if you're needing any extra help with anything, just let me know and I'd be happy to do a video for you. So until next time, bye for now and have a great rest of your night.